what's your definition of love? And I'm getting the craziest answers. And all right, welcome. We're here with Breaking Through with Brad. That's the name of his show. And he's on Randy's World right now. I'm Randy Viggiani, your host, and I'm excited to be here with Brad. Brad, I really appreciate so far. I've met you twice, and you're one of the most vulnerable, open people that I've ever met. And you're also, I see a lot of style similarities to myself, and I really just hope I'm as cool as you when I'm older. But I'm excited for this interview. We're going to be talking about love and relationships today. And Brad has been a relationship coach for how long?
21 years.
21 years.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So Brad, I want to start by asking you about your childhood. Where did you grow up and what was your family like? Was there a lot of love in the family? A little bit of backstory on yourself.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you as well. And it's always nice to meet another like-minded man in the world who's doing the inner work and healing and learning how to communicate. So I grew up in Pueblo, Colorado, about 2 hours south of here from Denver. I have my mom and dad who've been married 58 years. Two sisters, still married.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
Still happily married. Yeah, which is incredible. Just the fact that my parents have made it through so many things and still have a healthy, loving relationship is a testimony to, that relationships can really work and marriages can really work. So I was super blessed to have, two incredible parents that figured out how to do it and were really committed to just being joyful with each other. And then I have two sisters. One's older, one's younger, and they both have two kids. One's married and one's divorced. Pueblo, Colorado is my hometown. It was, an interesting place to grow up because Pueblo had a bad rap growing up. It still has not the best reputation, but it's a fantastic place to raise a family and stuff. So all of that stuff was a bunch of lies. I moved back about 9 years ago, 9 years ago from Los Angeles after living all over the place. And I'm super grateful to be back in Colorado after traveling the world and living in different places because Colorado is just very grounding for me. And I just got tired of all the craziness and rat race and stuff. But I was super blessed to have a family with a lot of love. And my parents were very loving and communicative. And again, my soul chose that family, my parents, to have an example of healthy, loving, communicative. And we had a lot of issues. Don't get me wrong. We had a ton of issues as family, but the foundation was there that hey, my dad was very open and vulnerable. He taught me that. He was very he wore his heart on his sleeve. He was very stern and masculine, healthy masculine, but he also would cry, was emotional, and never shamed me or any of our friends and stuff for that. So I was super blessed to have a healthy masculine role, which then was, really perpetuated me into doing what I do. But yeah, my childhood was very, I'd say I was very protected, sort of in a bubble, in a cocoon almost too much, because once I left and got out in the world, I got my ass handed to me.
Yeah. I guess mine toughened me up.
Yeah.
I kind of had the opposite. And I've heard from a mentor, hey, pick a girl from a great family. That's a good start. And it'll be a lot easier that way because everybody's, so handling the trauma and healing from their parents' relationships. And mine is from a divorce around the age of 14.
Yeah.
And so my parents never did figure it out. And that was my biggest fear, always was divorce and trying to learn the tools myself that would keep that from happening. And I've just spent a lot of time doing that and a lot of time repairing that damage.
Yeah.
So how did you then become a coach?
Well, yeah. So I never in a million years set out to become a coach. That was not at all my, never in a million years did I think that's what I was going to be doing. I was an athlete. I was a pretty good student. My goal was really sports and girls. I was really interested in, the normal stuff as a guy, sports and girls. And I was really sensitive, I would say. I was much more sensitive than I let on in high school and stuff. Because everybody's always oh, Brad, you're an athlete, you're cute, student or, junior class president, all that shit. And it was fun, but I also was way more sensitive emotionally than I was realizing. So once I got into high school, or my senior year and graduated, and when I started in college, I think college is when I like I went to CU, I went to University of Colorado, and like my freshman year, I was partying, I was having the best time of my life. But at the same time, it was like, I started realizing I don't really know who I am. Okay, I'm supposed to get these grades, do this, but like I was like, I don't know why I'm taking these courses. I'm doing the standard stuff, but like when I got to my junior year, I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. My family's like, well, what do you want to go to medical school? Do you want to become a business? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't know what I want to do. Like, I mean, I think these things, but I have no idea. And so, I started realizing that, and I joined a fraternity and stuff when I was a sophomore, because I wanted to get to know more people and branch out, because I was living with one of my best buddies that I grew up with. And, I was at CU and I still had the same friends. So I was like, I love my friends, but I just wanted to like see other people. Mm-hmm. And a fraternity, my parents were against all that. And I was like, I'm doing it anyway. I joined one. It was a blast. But that's when everything got really loud, where I was like, I saw myself in a ton of insecurity and trying to like fit in and please, and always like look good and be cool, right, with all the guys. Mm-hmm. And it was just so happened to be that the thing that triggered me and like started ushering me toward that was that my junior year, I was home waiting tables, and this woman that was like, I was kind of dating. She was like 10 years older than me, and she was like drop dead gorgeous, like a woman. Okay. She was 31. I was 21. And I was like, what is she doing with me? Like, I'm this little boy, and this woman, like, I was honestly kind of terrified of her. But she said to me, she said, Brad, we were out one night, and she said, you're really awesome. Like, I really like you. Like, I appreciate you. And the way she was saying it was not like a woman's ever said that to me. It wasn't flirtatious. She was like being real and dead serious. And I was just like, whoa. And I was like singing this Bon Jovi song at the top of my lungs, like at karaoke. And that's when she was just like, I really like you, and she's like, there's this seminar thing you should do. Like, I went and checked this out, and it really made a big difference for me. And there's this company called Landmark Education, which they do like weekend seminars. Yeah. And that was I went and took it because of her, and it was like a weekend thing. And I had never experienced anything like this in my life. And that was the beginning of my awakening. That was the beginning of me starting to heal. Was this program was designed, it's just designed to help you learn how to communicate and some new distinctions in life. And it blew me the fuck open, like blew me open. And I was sitting there for 3 days, because I did all of the assignments like balls to the wall, because I was like, whatever's happening here is different. And this guy leading it is like so direct. And I've never seen anyone be that direct and so clear. And it wasn't like he was he was just like clear as fuck. And I was super intimidated, because I was like, this guy is speaking truth, and it fucking is rocking me. Right. Mm-hmm. And, but in that program is when I decided, I was like, I'm letting go of like what people think about me. Like, I'm letting it go. Like, that's my commitment in this moment, in this weekend, is like, I'm letting that go. And I did. And I literally finished the weekend. I walked back into my fraternity house, and this is not a joke. I walked in, I hadn't said a word to anybody, literally just walked in the door, and I had 5 guys like walk up to me. They saw me, and they all like came up to me, and they're like, dude, what the hell? Like, what's up with you? And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you're different. And I was like, yes, I am. They were like, what happened to you? I was like, oh, I just did this thing. And they're like, dude, like, what the fuck? And I was like, so it was like so prevalent. And it was like this freedom. It was like I took off that coat of the insecurity, you know what I mean? Yep. And I was just like, I'm letting this go, and I'm not ever going to grab onto it again. And I mean, I've had my moments, but it was like, that was like this huge moment of, I'm never going to live by what people think about me again, and like worry about them liking me and all this stuff. And then my senior year, I had literally the greatest time of my entire life. And all my friends were like, you're nuts, dude. Like, Swanson is nuts, because I just didn't give a fuck anymore. And that's when I had the most like fun with girls and started having healthy communications and stuff and interactions. Because I was just like, I can't stand being contained in fear anymore. And that was just the beginning, though, right? So that was, to answer your question in a really long way.
Like, we're being honest.
That was the beginning of my own awakening to being honest, mm-hmm. right? To being transparent with myself, and being able to be that with someone else. So then it was, I participated with them for a long time, but I just got super committed to that healing conversation. Mm-hmm. So I started reading every book that came out, everything that I saw that like resonated with me. And I just started taking my shit apart because I was like, the way I'm doing it, it's not working. Like my way of doing it has always been to people please and look good and all this stuff, and it's not working. And so it was a good, it was a good another 8 years of being completely immersed in that conversation. And I mean, full on commitment. That's when I finally was like, this is what my friends were all like, hey, you're supposed to do this. Like, you're supposed to do this. You help people all the time. And I was like, no, no, no. I can't, no, like, I just, and they're like, no, listen, like literally my friends were like, you have to charge people.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the people around me were telling me this. And finally I was like terrified. And then I was like, you know what, you're right. And it was like a leap of faith when I first started doing it. But, it was like one of the most amazing miracle moments of my life.
Yeah, I'm just starting to get into a little bit of relationship coaching, and I've always done business coaching and character coaching, but I really enjoy love and relationships the most. But I've just been loving all the wonderful conversations of people opening up to me and everything. So it's been a great first experience for me. What do you think? I'm going to go straight into some questions here.
Yeah.
What do you think your best relationship so far in your lifetime has been? And I think you're not in one currently, right? But what's the best one and why?
Well, they've all been like every relationship I've ever had since this process has been more of like, I view relationships differently. So it was like, instead of like them being a success, if you get married or if you just end up committed or whatever, mm-hmm. I let go of all of that. And I was like, I'm in the learning and I'm in the learning all the time. And I eventually would love to be with a committed partner, a committed, relationship with a woman, but that's not the goal anymore in the same way. Like that's going to happen because of alignment and being energetically aligned with someone else who can communicate and owns her own shit too.
So
right.
You're kind of looking for that great communicator.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And just is on our own path and already, living from a cup that's overflowing and isn't like the relationship it's not needy, right? She doesn't need anything. So, it's been a bunch of them, I've had some wonderful girlfriends, wonderful relationships. Like I was, telling you at lunch, it's like I was with this woman for a couple years. We lived together the whole time. And that was a really transformative relationship because, it was like whatever, 10 years ago. And, but from the get-go, we started off with complete honesty. And I told her all this right off the bat. I said, I was like, look, if the only way we're going to date is if we can have complete transparency and total honesty about everything all the time. And I literally gave up jealousy. I gave it up and I'm not going to grab onto it anymore. And she was like, yeah, right. Like, okay. And then a month into dating me, she was like, walked up to me and said, wow, you weren't joking. And I said, what are you talking about? She's like, you weren't kidding about the jealousy thing. And I, what do you mean? She goes, all these guys are talking to you stuff. And I said, baby, you're gorgeous. Like, you're with me. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, if you need to go be with someone else, go do that. But I'm not playing this game anymore. But she was like, you aren't joking. I said, no, I'm not joking. Like, there's these things that have literally handcuffed me for life. And once I got free from them, I'm not going back.
Yeah, I like that because if you just give them enough space to go hang themselves, they can either do that or they will, respect you.
Well, they realize they're either looking for some ego validation bullshit, which they might even go get it for a second. And then they go, wait, what am I doing? I don't want this. Like, I have this guy that's awesome. Right. And he's not treating me with that way. So like it forces them to have to step forward in a new way too. Like that they're like, wait, no, like I'm in this with you. Like we're not going to play these games. We're going to be transparent. So it's a whole new thing. So back to your question is like, I would say that relationship was super impactful because she and I walked through a bunch of really challenging things. Like we were both transparent. We both did sexual stuff like together. We did our fantasies together with total transparency. We also did stuff separately while we lived together. We did stuff that was like our friends were like, what? You guys are fucking nuts. Like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. But what was interesting was that when we were honest about all that stuff and we did it with complete transparency, and I'm not saying it wasn't hard, like it was scary, right? Really scary. But when we did it, we came through the other side and we were both like, okay, like that was cool. And I don't really feel like I need that anymore. Like that's weird, So it took all this ego shit you think you need and it just like dissolved it.
Yep.
And then it was like, now we're really sitting here looking at each other going, now what? Like, let's keep relating because I think you're fucking awesome. And we just made it through something most people would never make it through. you know, like through like being honest and like facing shit and doing things totally transparently instead of lying and cheating. And we both are like way more grounded now and can talk more now. So my life has been a series of those kind of events. And I won't be in a relationship with a woman like you know, I've only had a handful of girlfriends since then, that I would even say like that's my girlfriend, like maybe two since then. And it's all been that same kind of honesty. And it's been a challenge because, you know, when you really start walking this path of real transparency and honesty, when you're not hiding anymore and you're not going to placate someone's ego and their feelings, it's a whole new level to see if that person's going to like rise up to that. Because a lot of women say, oh, yeah, I want that until it's there. And then they're like, oh, fuck, no, like this is too scary.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
way too vulnerable.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I've been asking a woman is, what does love mean to you? Because I want to see how I'm going to be loved, or if it's just an idea to them, or if it's an action, or
Yeah.
what. So what does love mean to you, Brad?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I mean, love for me, like the definition I would say is that love is, my favorite definition is the granting of being. So it's just the granting of being, because you're not like, love is there between everybody. It's between people all the time. Like once you start being vulnerable, love is just there. Like you can like love guys and love like whoever. You just all of a sudden you're like, fuck, I love this person. Like they're fucking awesome. And there isn't any sort of that egoic attachment and all that other stuff to it, right?
It sounds very freeing when you say it that way. It's almost like a freedom type of a freedom definition.
Well, it is. It is complete freedom. It's freedom because you're literally like, it is my favorite definition, the granting of being. You're saying to this other being, I grant you complete being, no judgment. That's what's there. In that space, there's this emotional thing, like it shows up, like the warmth, the feelings, all of the oxytocin and all that stuff comes up, and you're like, whoa, it feels really good. But it feels good because there's no judgment, right? So it's just the granting of being, and it's the same thing. A romantic relationship is a little bit like it's that, but it still is like you can still have like the ooey gooey feelings and all the feelings and stuff, but you don't attach to them. You're like, I love you. You're still free. We can have commitments. Like we can make commitments to each other based in freedom and no, not ego, not in fear. That's different than like you're locked down because you're with me. You have to do this, right? Don't lie, don't cheat. Like it's like, no, like you can talk to me about anything. We can talk about anything. If you have any other desires, if anything comes up at any time, your commitment is that we talk about it.
Yeah, and yours sounds a lot like mine, and I'll give you mine, and I got it from David Dita.
Yeah, who I love. He's one
And
of my
he
favorites.
says to be one with. And I really thought deeply about that. And like to be one with is all of those things that you say, because, you know, if you're one with them on agreement that you're going to be able to see other people, like you're in their head, you understand what they want, you're able to be compassionate and maybe not hurt them in a certain way, because complete freedom, if you're not careful with it, you could probably hurt them if you're not one with them on the agreements and the harmony of the relationship.
Yeah.
So I really dug deep into this. What does it mean to be one with? And try to apply that on everything and everyone that I love. Just really getting into understanding their needs, wants, desires, and trying to serve.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's, you know, I tell people all the time, I have clients all the time, and, you know, I'm like, love is real. I'm like, love is real. Because people are like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I can tell them like they haven't experienced what I'm talking about. Right.
Yeah, or maybe they've never even tried to define it. And that's why I've been trying to ask people, like, what's your definition of love? And I'm getting the craziest answers. And some of them are nothing to do with anything that we're saying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's like about the in the box, right? It's like the checklist. Well, these if you do these things for me, right, it has nothing to do with like being, nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is that as I'm like helping clients and helping people define that for themselves as well, and they start having healthy communication and speaking their loving truth to people, and then not judging, all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, like love. And I'm like, yeah, that's what is there. It's there automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get all your ego and stuff out of the way, it's automatically there. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't know. Like I, you know, and they're crying and emotional because they're like, I'm like, yeah, the emotional part of you is the barometer. That's what helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotions are healthy. It's there to help you, right? And instead of being afraid of that feeling, let it overwhelm you. Like,
Yeah.
embrace it, embrace the tears, embrace the overwhelmed feeling. Like, and as you breathe into it, it gets easier and it gets better. And then you start practicing, like, oh my God, like that's what your breath is for. That's what emotions are for. That's what, and love is there. It's there all the time. It's been there all the time. It's just your pain, your ego, your past, everything's been in the way blocking it.
And I know the more that you do that practice, like you're getting in tune with their emotions and you're able to predict them in a way. You predict their heart and what it's thinking, what it's
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
And so I really love that about it.
Yeah.
Where do you think most couples go wrong in relationships? What ends up tearing them apart?
Well, there's a zillion things. I mean, the most common thing that I'm dealing with, I'm working with some couples right now with a couple of married couples, some individuals who are in relationships and stuff. But like I would say, um, it's first and foremost is communication breakdown is always everything. Like that's where everything starts. And that means a lot of different things. So it's like you have to be willing to, first of all, communicate with yourself and tell yourself the truth first, right? So if you can say to yourself, like when someone hires me, or like this couple I'm working with, for example, like when they hired me, they were like, okay, we realize we're having issues, right? We realize it's not going well and what we're doing is not working and we need outside help. So the fact that they could even say that to each other and to me is the very first step of like, okay, we acknowledge what we're doing is not working. So then, because that's so vulnerable, like so vulnerable to just admit we're struggling, right? Instead of repeating the same pattern over and over and over again and ending up like upset or with resentment, being pissed off or just misunderstood. So it's like that first step is so huge. And then, once we start talking, the main thing kind of among everyone is I always tell my clients, I'm always like, you're either coming from love or fear in every moment about everything. And I don't care what it is, every single thing, it's either love or fear. Mm-hmm. It's literally that simple. It's very profound because when you really start breaking down how fear masks itself and the ego will trick you and it'll pretend like it's love and it's not, it's still fear, right? So it's like, it's identifying that we're all afraid of, again, somebody leaving, them not understanding, not feeling heard, not feeling seen. You're not good enough. It's never going to be enough. I'm not performing sexually in bed. I'm whatever, right? It's always fucking fear. Mm-hmm. Every single time. So the common denominator is fear on some level where one person is afraid, the other person's afraid. Then you build up walls because you're afraid to communicate those things and you shut down. Everybody just shuts down.
Yeah.
Like when they get to a certain point.
And the walls, like you were saying earlier, you mentioned the word resentment. And I think that's what those walls are. Like if the failure to communicate every time something happens that pisses you off and you let it slide, you start building up these little resentments for the person. And then all of a sudden you're treating them like shit and you're treating a stranger you might be talking to like gold. And you don't realize, look, these resentments built up for this person I love, and that's I got to clear those out. But
that's correct.
The other thing for me I've noticed is like lack of commitment. People haven't like really committed to anything in their lives, and they go to a relationship and they're really not sure how to have that strength to fully commit and fully trust the person. And so I don't know. What do you think is a good way to clear out some of that resentment? Is there like a format that you would use to try to get them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's again for the first and foremost, it's the same thing. Like I've literally worked with thousands of people, literally thousands, and it's this almost identical conversation every time on some level, where I'm like, okay, let's identify the fear, like what broke down, where in the conversation. Oh, they're like, okay, I'm upset, I'm this happened. I'm like, okay, well, we'll slow down. What happened exactly? This and this and this. Okay, so then what'd you decide? Well, I heard this, right? I thought this, and oh my God, it sent me into fear. Okay, so now you see the fear, right? You see exactly when you decided it. Okay, so now you can like identify it, look within yourself, and go, was it really real?
Yeah.
Was it really real? Because sometimes most of the time it's not really real, right? So when a person takes accountability, so the key is to identify the fear and then take accountability for it, and then you can communicate where you were coming from and be vulnerable and sharing why you got triggered. And then the other person, whenever you're willing to be vulnerable, the other person goes, whoa, holy shit, like I get it, right? Because they have the same shit going on in their life. They do the same thing.
Right.
So it's that practice of when you get one person being willing to be vulnerable, own it, acknowledge it, own it completely. The other person will do the same thing. And all of a sudden you get this new momentum going where each person's willing because they're like, holy shit, they're just as terrified as I am.
Yeah, and they had the
And they're
same
willing.
intentions, right, to love
Correct.
you. And
That's
maybe
right.
maybe that all comes down at the deepest level to a few of there's only a few big fears that I see that come up. Like once you really get down to the root, it's like, okay, the fear of abandonment and the fear that I'm not enough. And like those are the two biggest ones that I've noticed. But there's only like a handful. Once you get down to it, we all got them same handful of
Yes.
fears that we need to
Yeah.
get down to and address.
Right.
But yeah, what other systems can you put in place? Like maybe if you're clearing resentment, you might do it once a week where you sit down with your partner. Hey, do you have any resentments with me right now?
Yeah. A
But
great.
what other like
Yeah, well,
systems?
another great practice, one that I just implemented. I'm always listening to my clients, and I always wherever they're at, like new ideas come up, right? So I was like, with this couple I'm working with right now, I told the woman, I was like, a really good practice would be is to sit down every week, once a week, for like 30 minutes, and just both of you vocalize whatever things are coming up, whatever challenges, whatever things, like have the challenging conversation. Because this particular couple is like very they're both very shy, and so they're really learning how to like just sit down and talk about the challenging things that are there for them, because they both have been afraid, like, oh my god, like I don't want to hurt the other person, and
Right.
the other person's going to leave even
Or
though they're
I don't want
married.
to get hurt.
Even though they're married, I'm like, you guys are so funny because you guys committed, you got married, you're married, like you committed, and you're still afraid of this. You know what I mean? Like that's how funny people are. And so they started doing that. They were like, okay, we're going to sit down once a week, talk about these challenging things. I said, because when you make it a practice, when you make it a normal practice, it's very difficult at first, but after 3, 4, 5 weeks, all of a sudden it's like you're not terrified.
And nobody's doing it. Maybe 90% of the people aren't doing that.
Right. Well, just talking about what's going on, relationships, I don't care if you're married or just dating or whatever. You're really friends with the person, right? And because people get divorced and stuff, you can like nobody's stuck, like nobody's like ball and chain, like you're not trapped, right? I mean, like literally.
Mm-hmm.
So people can leave, like it's an illusion that you're like no one's ever gonna bail. But at the same time, once you realize, you go, there is no real safety net for real. The only real safety net is actually being transparent and being vulnerable and talking. Because once you start talking, you're like, whoa, this person is their own individual. They're always going to be their own individual. Even though they're married to me, they're their own individual.
Yeah, that's your safety net too.
And
Being a strong
I
individual.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
respect them for that. And I honor them for that, and they do the same for me. Well, now you actually do have a safety net. Now it's a real safety net of trust and respect, right? So instead of that fake one you're trying to grab onto and grip on it with a death grip, people are like, once you start talking and realizing, oh my gosh, like I can have no judgment of this person who I love and let them completely share, and they do the same for me. And then it opens up a whole new level of communication, like completely different, because you really see them like they are their own person, and we're first and foremost friends, and then we're lovers, and however we want to define our relationship.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget that they are friends, and they end up, transitioning out of lovers to nothing and overnight. And like, well, what kind of friend are you if you're doing that? So you might
Exactly.
have not even invested into that friendship then.
Yeah, well, 100%. People, I call that like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You have any issues, and people are just like, peace, I'm out. I'm out. Like,
Yep,
that's
yep.
not, I'm like,
That's a
okay,
culture issue, maybe. I
that's
don't
not
know.
real love.
Yeah. Mhm. So another thing we got on my board here is the importance of common goals. I think a couple, if you're working towards something together, it helps you align. It helps you have a future together that you can both look forward to and work on every day. Types of common goals that I know about are, work goals. Maybe you want some real estate together. Maybe you want to align on where you're going to live in the future. If you're going to have kids, marriage. What do you think? Is it important to have some common goals too, and not
Oh,
just be a totally separate individual?
1,000,000%, 1,000,000%. I mean, you can be an individual and still be a couple. You can do both, right? That's what's so dope about life, is everything's a paradox. And the I know, like I have some friends that are in like just an epic marriage. I know some other couples that I really respect and the way they're doing it, and I watch their stuff, and it just is so healthy and amazing. Is that, like I said, first and foremost, you always have to realize we are both individuals. We have chosen from a place of healed freedom to be together in a committed relationship. Now that we're there, now there's these other things we can do, right? So just like what you're saying is like, I mean, yes, I think like, again, having a date night once a week, right? Having a date night where it's like no one else involved, no kids, no nothing, and you have your own romantic time. Setting that time aside is super important. You can do stuff like working out together. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
lot of different
fitness
things that,
goals. Hmm.
yeah, again, as you start talking to people, once you start really listening, like what really turns them on or what they really like, and I mean turn on like excited just about life. It's like, somebody like a woman might like to really cook. She's like, I really enjoy cooking, and I really love cooking for my man or my family, and that's something that brings me a lot of joy. Like, it's just listening to what people really dig, and then again, as you come together and you both sit there and go, hey, look, let's, like for example, this family I'm talking about, they do an overnight date night once a week, every since they've been together. They also uh, they set time aside after their day. They both go and have their work days, and then after their work days, they go and they connect like in the evening. They have a cocktail together. They go for a walk. They catch up about their day. And it's like just these simple things that has you not get lost in all of the minutia of life and just keep like reconnecting, because really truly all of us want to like be dating the person we're with. Like, we can be committed to them in love, but to me, I want to keep dating. I want to be in the dating process of like learning to love her and be new with her all the time. I don't want to just be like, okay, we're together,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
at the opposite side of that, I think it's important too to maybe if you're going to pick somebody to be in a relationship with, make sure they have some common goals that are going to align with you. Because if they don't want kids and you do,
Oh yeah,
or if
that's
they want to be a
huge.
full-time traveler and you're committed in your career and staying in the state, like there's some things that you want to see.
Yeah.
Can we even align here before we get caught up in all the passion and everything in the beginning and
Well,
just be
that's
like, oh, I want to be with this person, and you haven't even learned what they're about.
that's a super huge point, is having those conversations right off the bat, of to see like if you're having any of those thoughts of even sort of like, hey, this could be commitment type thing, is having those honest discussions. Do we align on these bigger things? Because if someone wants to have kids, the other one doesn't, that's a huge issue.
Yep.
The giant issue. If someone wants to travel over the world and you want to stay home, that's a huge issue. It's
And
not
why do
going to
you want to
work.
love them if you're not going to
Well, it's
try
just
to
not.
satisfy
It's
any of their needs or goals or anything?
Yeah. I mean, it's
Mhm.
again, it's just you're probably out of alignment.
Yep. Yep. So last thing here, did you want to say anything to the people that right now they have a closed heart, they're struggling to heal, they're going through hell? Um, is there a pathway out? Can they see some light right now if they wanted to?
100%. I mean, what I would tell anybody is this: that after my own healing journey and coming through some really crazy things, I was in a space like 9, 10 years ago where I wrecked myself, like physically, emotionally, energy, like all of it, and really didn't think I was going to come back out of it. I didn't think I was going to ever get better again. And after that, just surrendering to that process, allowing everything, like really just trusting, having faith. It was it really deepened my relationship with God. I was just like, I was really brought back to like nothing, and but it was the best thing ever for me on a much deeper level, because I had to really let go of and really face and look at my ego, my identity, and the things I was deathly holding on to. And literally, I just kept hearing this voice, just kept saying to me, Brett, just let go, like let go, just trust, right? And I finally, as I did, I was true as like, wow, like, am I really going to get back to like loving myself again? Am I going to get back to feeling good again? Am I going to get back to like be even remotely functional again? And trusting that, walking like step by step, not trying to rush it, really taking time with my own self, and being super gentle and having a ton of grace for myself. It was like literally like me being like a little baby infant again and learning how to walk, in all the ways, and just being super gentle, but taking the steps and just trusting moment by moment. I healed, and
Yeah,
I
and I
healed,
like
and
that.
I healed in a whole new way.
That sounds very graceful
Yeah.
instead of just pushing full force. Like, I'm healing tomorrow and this is it.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it was
you're like, I took
see,
my time.
that again is ego trying to force it. This
Yep.
was like, this was a definitive moment where, you know, source was talking to me, and it was like just second by second, moment by moment, literally let go. You can't force anything. Just keep stepping baby steps toward it. And it started coming back. All my healing and wisdom started coming back in a deeper way, but with 10 layers deeper than it ever was, you know? So it was like the stuff, even the stuff that I knew already was like coming in deeper and deeper and deeper, where I was just like in gratitude going, wow. Like, I can't believe, and every day it was just like, I'm in gratitude. So, you know, I say to people all the time, like, you know, for me now, like the mundane is magnificent, you know, the mundane of life is even magnificent, because when you're in chronic pain or you're going through something really challenging like that, for me, just to get back to like just feeling normal on a normal day, like where I can sit down and do a podcast with you, like I couldn't do that for 3 years, you know? So I promised myself, I was like, I'll never forget what the hell that I was in and the suffering I was in, to not be grateful, to just feel normal and have a healthy conversation with a human being, or to just hang out with my family, or to just, you know, go for a walk outside. It was like, I really was serious. I was like, I'm taking this in. I'm not going to rush anything. I'm just super in gratitude, and I'm going to be thankful for all of like just the regular stuff of life, epic things, epic conversations and relationships. All of it's now just like a bonus. It's like a bonus, like the icing on the cake now, you know?
Yeah, just sitting with that pain, working through it, finding some gratitude,
Yeah.
maybe taking some steps to, get off your ass if you're sitting it at home, and maybe work out and do the things that,
Just
bring back your energy.
just going for a walk. Like,
Mhm.
just I walk a lot and I work out and stuff too, but like during that time, like, so I have this real gratitude for walking. I walk almost every day, maybe a mile, sometimes two. And it's just like, I just walk my neighborhood, because that was the only thing I could do when I was in that chronic pain, and walking. So it became this like real meditative thing for me, because, you know, I couldn't work out. I mean, the only thing I could do was walk. And so now walking is like, when I like, people are like, you know, go for a walk, or you can just go for, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, let's just go out and walk and look at the trees. And, you know, so it's like the simple things like that, where before I was always like, let's go, crazy, go. You know, I want to do this. And I'm like, no, now I'm just like, nope.
Yeah. So, Brad, how can people get a hold of you if they want to work with you?
All my handles are, my website is breakingthroughwithbrad.com, all one word, breakingthroughwithbrad.com. My Instagram is breaking through with Brad. My Facebook is breaking through with Brad. It's all just breaking through with Brad.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
easy enough.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. This has been a blast.
I hope
It's
we get
great
to do this again
Yeah,
soon,
me
man.
too.
All right. Well, that's it for today's show on Randy's World, and you guys take care, and much love to everybody.